We have got a fantastic guest today on EP Live, Jools Watsham, and I just learned how to say his name correctly for the first time, which is great. Runs a studio called Atooi, and he has been a, can I say, renegade indie developer for a long time.
Oh, look out.
You may remember him from his days at Renegade Kid as well. Brought us great games like Xeodrifter and Mutant Mudds, and Chicken Wiggle is one of his latest creations. But his career stretches back. Dementium, Moon, Bomb Monkey. That's just fun to say. Jools, welcome to EP Live, my friend.
Hey, Vic. Good to see you, man. Thanks,
dude. Good to see you. I first met you,
nice.
I think you were working with Gathering of Developers, and we were doing a tour, and I think I interviewed you about, in Austin, Texas, about Dementium. Something for, you guys really focused on the 3DS back in that day.
Yeah, that was Gamecock,
Oh,
right?
Gamecock. Oh, my God, yeah.
Yeah, because they published Dementium. It was Gathering of Developers, I think because they liked the acronym was God, you know, because they're cheeky like that. And that morphed into Gamecock, and then that's morphed into Devolver Digital today.
Yes.
Great group of guys.
Amazing.
They're good friends. But yeah, no, that was great. It was in Austin, had a nice backdrop of the river there in Austin. It was awesome. When we met. Yeah,
how long have you been making games, Jools?
Over 25 years.
25 years. And you don't have a Texan
and I still like
accent. You don't sound like you're from Austin, Texas.
Right, no, it's more east. More east Texas. Yeah, no, I'm from England originally.
And were you making games in England and made the move to this?
I was. Yeah, well, I started, actually, what's neat is my first job in the video game industry was on the other side. It was for a video game print magazine. This was before the internet, which is horrifying.
I don't think anybody remembers paper anymore, Jools. I think we're screwed there.
This is pre-internet, pre-email. I sent I guess I mailed in my my written review to kind of get the job. Anyway, I was like 17. I walked in off the street and very cheekily asked if they were looking for anyone to hire anyone, and they probably were like, "Wow, we have to give this at least a shot because the goal on this 17-year-old is at least investigating." I was very polite though. I wasn't like forceful, but I wrote some reviews of some of my favorite games.
What was the magazine?
The One. For the Amiga and the ST.
That's great.
And my writing was awful. I can definitely say that. I did these reviews. They were terrible. I think one was like for Speedball 2. One was for Gods from the Amiga. Some classic games by the Bitmap brothers. I sent them in, and they're like, "All right, we can maybe do something here." I was cheap and enthusiastic. I think that was the key there. So I worked there for a year.
The industry, and this was true for Electric Playground as well, when we were, just coming up, because we just created the show and started making the show, and we had to get to know everybody, and this was pre-internet and pre-Google Maps, so we were always late everywhere that we went because we were printing out maps and trying to find stuff, or actually had maps that we would buy at gas stations.
Right, actually, like the old school maps, exactly.
But people in the business that's what they want, man. And I think they still want it, but back then especially, they want that fire, that love, that enthusiasm.
Totally. Because otherwise, why are you doing it, right? This isn't like a job. This is a passion. If it's just a job, well, we should probably go somewhere else because it's not going to work out for you. You come here, whatever facet of video games you're involved in, you're there because you love it. And that's... and then everyone's happy. You're happy.
It's very different, though, to write about games and talk about them from a perspective of a critic or a consumer or a fan than it is to actually sit down and make them. What was the decision? Like, when did you know that was going to be your calling?
What's weird? And my kiddos were asking me about that the other day, actually. And so I had to think about that. And what's interesting, like, did I grow up always wanting to make video games? And I was like, I did. But because at that time... And this was what? Let me think. Late 80s, early 90s, I guess, when I'm becoming a teenager or somewhere in there. I'm, like, how are video games made? Don't they just come from some magical factory somewhere? Do humans make them? I don't know. There's certainly no college courses. No one even talking about it. So it was very unattainable. I was like, yes, I want to make games. I was even doing it at home. I had a Commodore 60. I had a ZX Spectrum. I had a Commodore Amiga. Yes, the Commodore 64, then it moved on to the Commodore Amiga, and then the Atari ST.
What's happening with our show today? It's like all these old brands. We got Amiga and Atari. Come on, what's happening?
I didn't have an Atari VCS in there though. So I had all these computers. So I was kind of getting in there, getting my hands dirty, making games. Not really anything worth talking about, but getting in there and trying to learn some of it, doing some artwork and stuff like that. But so yeah, I totally wanted to, but I never allowed myself to entertain the idea that that could be possible. So that's not going to happen. I'll just go into graphic design or something like that, which I was more than happy to do. Nothing wrong with that. But I kind of stumbled into, I was doing actually graphic design college at the time in London, when I then stumbled across EMAP Images, who made the print magazines that I had in my pocket at the time. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I pulled it out and got in and got a job eventually. But while I was there, I continued working on my art portfolio, pixel art, which I'm still doing today and still love. And I remember I sent in my portfolio on a floppy 3.5-inch disc. It was my portfolio that I mailed in to the video game company, and I got a job from that, which is just crazy to think. And that was the sales curve, or storm, or whatever. And I think they grew into IDOS maybe eventually. I'm not sure.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And were you making those connections because you were working as a journalist? Were you starting to...
Exactly. I met one of the programmers came in and was showing us one of their games, and I was obviously asking everyone, hey, you guys hiring? And, looking for any artists or whatever? And he's like, oh, maybe.
Tale. I can't tell you how many people I came up with as a journalist covering the business who are now like, running huge companies or making massive games. And,
that was the way you did it, basically, because there's no internet. So it was all word of mouth. It was all, I guess, newspapers and magazines. It was, you had to be quite a sleuth and quite on it to get anywhere. It was very different. It was fun.
I have the same kind of way of communicating around EP and why I wanted to make the TV show, right? Because when I was talking to TV executives getting the show off the ground, I would tell them that, like, nobody knows how these things get made, and that's what I want to do, is go and find these people and put them in front of the camera so we can find out. Because when I was growing up, I thought people just pulled a lever and a new game popped out of the game machine.
Some magic factory somewhere. Exactly. People didn't make that. It came from the video game place. Exactly.
So you were in the UK. Were you in London, or were different?
I was. Yeah, I was in London.
And then so it's not an easy thing to transition to game making, and it is also a difficult thing to transition from the UK to an American address. How did that all come together? You worked at a game studio out there for a while?
Yeah, it was the best way, because I was about 18 when I moved to. Oh, let me think now. I'm sorry, 19 when I moved to the States.
Oh, wow.
So I was 17 at the magazine, 18 at the first video game pixel pushing job, and then at 19 I then applied to Iguana UK.
Amazing.
You probably remember Iguana from back in the day. So they had the UK office up in Middlesbrough. So I actually applied there, got the job, awesome, fully intending to move up to Middlesbrough to work up there. And then like, hey, we'll send you over to the States to train to our HQ for 3 months, and then you'll come back. And then, because I was young, I was 19, I was still learning, and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Just send me over to California so I can train. Sure, okay. So I came over, and we just never talked about me going back, which is crazy.
That's awesome.
It's a great way for a 19-year-old, because I think if they said, hey, do you want to move to the States? That's a pretty heavy decision, pretty heavy question to answer. And I didn't actually ever have to answer that. They kind of tricked me into going over to California. That same year, actually, the company moved down to Texas, where I am now.
That's an amazing origin story. Like 17, you say, I'm going to go do this. 18, you're doing it. And 19, you're relocated and you're working for a company that became very, very prolific, and then eventually started to...
Yeah, they were huge.
They became retro in a lot of ways as well, right? Yeah.
True. A lot of spin-offs, a lot of great spin-offs. Yeah, it was it was amazing. That was like, it was a good time, man. It was good stuff.
Spangenberg brothers?
Jeff Spangenberg. Yeah.
Cool.
He and his wife Beth ran it, basically.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so you started Iguana, and what were the games that you were working on at Iguana?
So let me think now. So there's Pirates of Darkwater. There was Aero.
Aero the Acrobat for the Super Nintendo?
Aero the Acrobat.
Amazing, okay.
Yep, and Genesis, yeah. I did a ghost anime in that. I remember it was a spinning ghost. Yeah, that was it. That was my, like, oh, this is cool. I get to work on, a fun game. Because I was kind of doing, like, stuff for, like, the side pocket, the pool game, which was fine. But not half as exciting as doing a platformer or adventure game or whatever. But then I moved on to Pirates of Darkwater, which is like a platformer kind of based on the old cartoon show. Yeah, Aero the Acrobat. And then I became lead artist for Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel. So that was awesome.
That's great. So that was,
and that was for SNES
David
Genesis.
Siller, I think, right?
Yeah, the Sunsoft guys. Yeah,
terrific. And then he went off. did he work on Maximo or something like that?
He
Yes,
did.
yeah,
Yep, he did
yeah,
Maximo at
yeah.
Capcom.
Great people.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He's a good
and
guy. Yeah.
I guess kind of trailblazing everything then. And then, so how long did you stay with Iguana then?
I was, and then well, Iguana was bought by
Yep.
Acclaim at some point. Came Acclaim Studios Austin, and then I was there until the end. Man, they closed in 2004, and I was there right until up until the end.
Wow.
They had to literally close it for me to get out of there,
I had
which
I
was
had Josh
bittersweet.
Sway on the show the other day, and he was a Midway employee, and it just really
Oh yeah,
struck me
okay,
that
yeah,
these massive companies, they just go poof. You know, that's why
yeah,
like this
amazing, right?
Ubisoft news today
Multi-million.
is so good. You know, like
That is good.
right?
Yeah, getting away from the anything, that's good for them.
because
Good for them.
honestly, that could have
Yeah.
been the next big poof. You know, like right?
Exactly. They just consume them, squeeze them dry, and move on to the next thing. It's not
Was
good. Not that's not what happened to Acclaim, but I guess that technically happened to Iguana. Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Acclaim just made too many mistakes. That was their problem. But Iguana was, I mean, they got bought out, which seemed attractive at the time.
Well,
but,
Acclaim was famous for one of the quotes. I think that I don't know if this was ever officially acknowledged that it came from there, but somebody, I think it was from Acclaim, said we could put shit into a box and brand it properly, and it would sell. And
Definitely.
they tried that many
sounds about
times with
right.
their games.
They did. Remember BMX Triple X? What was going on with that? Dave Mirra and all that.
But it
Wow,
was also
that
a
awful.
factory, dude. Like there were so many games that came out of Acclaim.
Yeah.
Were you
Yeah.
burning out when you worked there? Were you just like,
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's what sucks, really, because we had some amazing people. And obviously, Iguana was a great studio. That's why they were bought in the first place. And all the studios that were under the Acclaim umbrella were great people, good people doing the games for the right reasons. But Acclaim management, I don't know. It's hard to say exactly what happened, but, and it's always easy for me, who's making the games, looking up to the bosses and blaming them. But I think it was their fault. But we're learning our craft, and we're fans of the industry and fans of the games, and we're kind of seeing things move and change. And like one of the ways that Acclaim would kind of approach game development. And I remember we did this with Turok, what was it, 4 or 5, whatever the last one was. For them, for PS2. So I'm looking up there because I have framed pictures of the games. I think it was GameCube, PS2, kind of Xbox era. Anyway, that game and Vex, and they both turned out okay. But the beginning of the project was like, okay, this is how big the team's going to be. This is how many years it's going to take, and this is the budget. And it needs to score, a Metacritic or whatever it was at the time of 9 out of 10, and everyone will be great. It's like that's okay,
Yeah.
but and we were kind of getting a whiff of kind of like, let's do things a bit more intelligently. Let's spend 3 months creating a kick-ass prototype of an idea, and if that's awesome, great, let's go.
Nintendo
And
way.
let's just exactly the Nintendo way. And if it's great, let's go and let's devote millions of dollars to it. Or if it's awful, let's destroy that and do it again until we've got something that's great and then run with it. And they're like, no, we're just going to commit to this thing and just make it work. And it's like, yeah, but what if it doesn't work? I guess you
because
close.
you're building art and not just art
Yeah.
from the perspective of the the pixels and the polygons, but the art of the whole experience. And it's not done by
We're always
robots.
reinventing the wheel. Yeah, every game is brand new. It's like you try and learn from the last one, but there's so much newness to every game you make. You're always walking new territory, even if it's a sequel. Even the Call of Duty people, they're always trying to outdo themselves from last time. It's never the same thing. It's always new and different, new risks, new challenges. So it's, you don't know. It's not a straight line. You don't know how it's going to end up. You know how you want it to end up, but it doesn't mean that's going to happen.
You can see that companies like Nintendo, and I would say companies like Ubisoft, have got a real respect for that trial and error process.
Yeah.
And I would counter that even Activision, even though they sort of have really shrunk their catalog to specific titles that earn billions of dollars, they generally make really good games over there. EA, I think, is getting a lot of the fire right now. Do you think that Electronic Arts has kind of lost their sort of core way with the way that, you got to just let the art breathe a little bit before you start making these huge financial considerations?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with a lot of EA stuff. I mean, I see their big sports games, obviously FEA or FIA as it's pronounced.
Yeah, and then they do cool things
is a
like
step
that.
in a very good
Yes,
direction.
and A Way Out,
Yeah,
which is coming out this week. I mean,
yeah,
I try to counter my criticisms, and like I'm not a I hate EA. EA has the target, like much like Acclaim had the target, you know.
yeah,
But I don't know
yeah,
if it's a disconnect from the executives and the creative people because it's a
yeah.
creative business, right? You can't.
It's so hard for them to maneuver, though. I mean, for people like us, I mean, teams like us, we're so small and therefore so nimble, and we're able to move like that. If we say that needs to change, it's done.
Yeah.
That's it. We don't have to deal with anything else. But for them, that's tough. You know, you have, you know, and they do hire. I think there is definitely a percentage of the workforce at those big companies that are there for a job, there for a stable career, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that comes with a certain risk, you know. And then there's another percentage of people that are there truly passionate, you know, willing to just kill themselves for it, you know. So, and then you have, you know, so some people are just trying to please their boss. Some people are trying to do the right thing for the game. Then you have people who are in the boss positions who got there. Now they have more money, responsibility. Maybe they shouldn't be there, but they're qualified to be there, but they don't want to be there, want more money. It's tough, man. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there. So I mean,
love your perspective.
And you're trying to make good games, and all that stuff's going on.
I love your perspective, though. Because
tough
you've worked with the big studios, and you've got friends and allies and colleagues all across the industry.
Yeah.
But you've not lost your enthusiasm. When I read your tweets, you play everything. You love Nintendo stuff, especially. I see how much you and I.
For sure.
Like I am that passionate, enthusiastic as well about this stuff. But I get fueled by that fire that you have, and also your creativity, the choices that you make. Tell me about the decision to run your own thing, because that is also not a very easy decision to do. I mean, it seems like it was partly thrust on you because the industry was changing, but it's you had to run your own thing, right?
Well, so in 2004, Acclaim closed, and let me think what happened. I probably tried to be independent. Oh, yeah, I was independent for a little while, just trying to freelance work, but certainly was not in a position to make my own company. So did some freelance work, and then ended up getting a really good job actually at King's Isle. I was a producer for King's Isle, and that was on the Wizard 101 project. Okay. So I was there at the beginning of that company, and I helped hire and kind of mold the beginning of that team and that company, I guess, in some regard, with Greg Hargrove, my very good friend, business partner at Renegade Kid. You know, we've been working and known each other for 10, 15 years, even prior to that. So we were working there, had good, cushy jobs, had no reason to rock the boat. But I had that desire, that fire in my belly for, gosh, probably about 10 years prior to that entire time, to just go independent, do my own thing. And I think some of that was fueled by working for other people at Acclaim, telling me what to do and how to make games. And I disagreed with them and tried to present new ideas, and they were never accepted. So that's a good experience to go through that, because it's like, I'm going to prove you wrong.
I always say,
even though you'll never know about it, at least I'll know.
I always say every shitty boss, you learn a lot from them, right? And then when you're given the opportunity to have any responsibility or any sort of, you know,
you hold it with a bit of a different perspective, a bit more respect.
Yes.
And
never forget that,
definitely.
Right? Never forget how that shitty boss made you feel.
So I definitely felt like I had something to prove. And I don't. Who does like bosses? I hate bosses. No one wants a boss. Horrible stuff. So when we start, so Greg and I were like, let's leave this cushy job. We have no good reason to leave. And that company's still going. They're very good. They're very stable, and that's great. And they're doing a good job. And they've done Pirates 101 and all kinds of good stuff. So good for them. So we left, and we're like, hey, let's make a survival horror FPS for the DS. Yeah, sounds like a great idea.
Oh, yes, it was. I kept saying 3DS, but it was the first DS, wasn't it?
The first DS. So it was me and Greg being an amazing artist, me handling the game design, and then we're like, all right, we need a programmer then. This is when the internet did exist. So we went on the forums and we posted for a programmer who could single-handedly handle a DS engine and a game. And we found one.
Dude.
Bob Ives. Amazing guy.
So you guys were doing Atari 2600 team sizes in the era of the DS.
Yeah, it was crazy. But we pulled it off, man. It's amazing. And Bob Ives was the programmer. Obviously incredibly talented. I mean, it was a situation where all of us were passionate and all of us firing on all cylinders. we're like, hey, let's make this, bloody game for this kid-friendly, family-friendly, console, and see what happens, because no one else is doing it. I mean, the game runs at 60 frames a second. It really shouldn't exist.
It was so cool,
especially because 3 people made it, and crazy. I mean, we hired a few contractors to fill in the gaps and do stuff, of course, but the meat of the team was there.
Well, it was also something that you were talking about Dementium here for the Nintendo DS. It was also something that was very. It's like one of those games that comes out for the Nintendo platform. You're like, oh, Nintendo does things like
that. What's that?
It sticks out.
Yeah. Well, that was our hope. It's either going to crash and burn or do really well. It's not much middle ground with a game like that if you do a decent job.
Did you already have the relationships with Nintendo? Did you know people over there, or was this something you got to...
No. You know what's crazy? We weren't even authorized developers at the time. We had, those little flash ROM cards you can get? I can't remember what they're called now. They're not illegal, but if you start downloading ROMs and put them on there, then that's illegal. So the ROM itself isn't illegal, but you can kind of hack it as a development thing. So we would make the game, like create an NDS file or whatever it was at the time, burn that to the cartridge, put it in our regular DS and play it. So that's how we made the game to begin with.
Nintendo's loving this story, right?
I know, sorry, but it is what it is. And then we became official. We teamed up with Gamecock. We went to lots of publishers, including Konami.
Yeah.
Even proposed the idea of like, hey, you can make this a survival horror game. A Silent Hill game if you want. And the famous response I got from that is, no, we wouldn't trust Silent Hill to a team like you.
Ooh.
Wow. Man.
Ooh.
That'll get you. So that's fun.
That's karma on display right there, man.
Yeah. I won't name who said that, but wow, dude. Anyway, so and we eventually, and this was at GDC actually. Wow, we got GDC is coming up this week. So yeah, GDC. Gosh, what year is it? So 11 years ago? GDC 11 years ago. We're going around GDC trying to get Dementium, find a home for it. We had a few different meetings, ended up coming back home to Austin, and then Gamecock, who's in Austin, we met up with them, and I remember we were going out for dinner at a Mexican restaurant with my family one night, and they called me up and said, yeah, we want to do it. And I was like, awesome. And my response was, really? Wow, I didn't think it would work, because we said, hey, give us a bunch of money to make this game on the DS. And they're like, yeah, let's do it.
That's awesome.
Anyway, it was super exciting.
Was that Mike Wilson or was that Harry?
Actually, it was Tim, the producer.
Okay, very cool.
So I did meet with Harry and Mike, yes, but it was actually Tim who called me.
The Mushroom Men was coming up around that same time as well. And did you do any stuff with those guys? I feel like I met everybody.
That was Red Fly, right?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
No, I know them, but no, I didn't work with them.
Okay, so that was Renegade Kid, and you're not working with Renegade Kid. You've started a new thing called Atooi, but Renegade Kid did Dementium and Moon and a couple more Dementiums, if I'm not mistaken, right?
We did Dementium 2 and ATV Wild Ride, racing game, Bomb Monkey, Mutant Mudds, Xeodrifter, and maybe some other ones. Oh, I got some logos back here. That's all the ones I think that all the main ones.
That's a good run. Maybe, and so that was great. Until 2016, 2015?
Officially, I think it was
2016.
2006. It was the end of 2016, so it was exactly about 10 years. It was 2007 to about 2017. So it was exactly 10 years. And I think total unique games, it was something crazy like 12 or 14.
That's amazing.
Because we included the 3DS versions because they were full-on projects. So yeah, we did. Yeah, it was a lot.
And how big did Renegade Kid grow to?
The biggest was probably when we were doing, let me think now, Dementium 2. That was really awesome because so Gamecock went under, unfortunately. We're kind of bought by South Peak. Right. Who's up in Dallas, or was up in Dallas. Yeah. So they got the rights to all their games, which was a bittersweet, strange thing. But they were, for a few different reasons, they kind of owed us some money because of back things and a few other weird stuff, kind of created the situation where we were being really adamant, like, hey, you owe us this money and lots of stuff going on. And we were like, well, and also we want to make Dementium 2. So they're like, all right, how about when we give you a really juicy budget for Dementium 2? Will that quiet you? We're like, yeah. It was like, at the time, it was about $500,000.
That's amazing.
Which to us was huge. Yeah. It was like, oh my gosh, that is so much money to like the handful of guys, you know, making a, like I said, yeah, still a DS game. So we were like, that was the biggest budget we've ever had, actually. Up to that point, and since then, it was like, oh my gosh. So we were like, yes, we'll take that. Yeah, so we actually got to team up, staff up the team. I'm trying to think. I think we got close to double digits, like 9 or 10-ish people, not full time, but you know, we kind of scale with whatever's needed. We're very, very careful. Like we only hire what we need, and we're very upfront. Like we're going to hire you for 3 months to do this. Is that cool? Yes, great. Let's go. So there's no one's like laid off. No one's surprised. Like catch later. We're like very upfront. Like this is what we need. Are you willing to do that? Because you want everyone to be happy. You don't want to be upset with, you know, with this. It's all it's supposed to be good and fun and happy. Anyway, so we're very legit about that. And yeah, so that's about the biggest we got, and that was great. And Dominion 2 is, in my opinion, yeah, I love it. It's got so much in there. The story, the audio, the graphics, is the whole. The
that was a 3DS game, or was that on the
That was DS. Still DS.
Still DS. Amazing.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's fantastic.
Such a great game. Really, yeah, it was super fun. We hired some incredible people, and it shows in the game.
So
yeah, awesome.
what happened then? Because you've gone off and you run Atooi now. Why not continue on with Renegade Kid?
It was a tricky decision, and it's not a clean. There isn't a clean answer. You know, me and Greg are still great friends, so there's no weird emotional fallout or divorce or whatever. It was getting to the point where financially it was quite challenging, and we were trying to always run kind of 2 games, right? Like a 3D game and a 2D game, and then one would do well and the other one wouldn't, and that would help that one, and then vice versa, and it was tough. So it just, you know, the writing was on the wall, I think, for a while, and you know, we were able to get away with that scrappiness on the DS, on the 3DS, but we're like, this era is going to be over soon. And sure, there's mobile, but that's a whole other beast, and I'm happy to dabble in there. It's very exciting as well. But, you know, our meat and potatoes are the consoles, are stuff, especially Nintendo and so on. Like, other things are coming down the pipe. You know what? We need to adapt, or we're going to die. What we're going to do, and we're like, well, unfortunately, the best thing is to probably end this, and I still have the fire to continue basically what I've always been doing, but without the overhead, the extra overhead,
right?
Basically, the extra team members, you know, so I can be a lot more lean and focused. So, and then Greg, you know, felt the same way. So we were like, all right, let's do it. Yeah, it sucked. It was not fun to make that decision. But,
I mean, yeah. Companies are fragile things, and they have to evolve on a constant basis. And you know, you have doors close and new ones open up. Now, Atooi, then is it just you? Is it just you putting all of this stuff together?
Well, I'm the only kind of full-time person, and then we have contractors that I work with. So right now, you know, I'm working with Matthew Gambrell, who's an amazing programmer who did the programming for Mutant Mudds, Xeodrifter, Chicken Wiggle. So, you know, I'm continuing to work with him on some projects. And then Phil Elder is another amazing programmer I'm working with on kind of more Unity 3D stuff. So we did, I guess our first game together officially was Totes the Goat, moving that over to the Switch. Right. I worked with someone else to do the mobile version, but we worked together to get onto the Switch, which is a great kind of, you know, launching way to kind of get us working together to do that. And now we're working together on Soccer Slammers for the Switch, which is an awesome arcade soccer game, which will be out in time for the World Cup, which is kick-ass, and Treasure Noughts.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so we have a few things going on, and then we'll just kind of hire, you know, extra people to fill in the gaps where need be. So it's very, very lean, very tight.
You're still making 3DS games, and you've shipped a bunch of 3D.
No more 3DS. 3DS is done.
So now you're full on Switch.
Chicken Wiggle was the last one.
And mobile.
Yep.
Switch and mobile, pretty much.
Switch, mobile, and we will be including PS4, potentially Xbox One, and then whatever else comes along.
And PC, I guess. So everything.
Sometimes we've done PC. That will be included for some future, at least one future thing that I know of.
That's wild. And so now, is that a kind of a common thing right now with indie developers to scale up for a few months to you know, do the contract work and ship these titles and stuff, and then scale down, scale up, scale down, kind of thing? Is that kind of normal right now for you?
I can't speak for other people, but that's the way that's the only way I know how to work. I mean, because at the beginning of a project, you don't need many minds. Yeah. You just need 1 or 2 key minds to figure it out. And if you have the extra minds, it just clouds the other minds. It's like, I'm sorry, but please go away. Yeah. Let us do our thing, because it's game design and potentially technology and whatever else the whole point of the game is. Whatever it is, get those people in a room, figure it out. Well, not in a room, but virtually, but whatever. And get it figured out. And then when you need the other people, you bring them on when they're needed, kind of thing. So that's the way I like to work. So yes, it's very accordion. It's very small and then very big and then very small again. And that's why we see layoffs, I think. I mean, I think that's why we see layoffs, is because that's just a natural way of creating anything, whether it be a story, a comic book, a movie, a book, you know, or a game, whatever. It has to start small, and then you get everyone there to finish it off. And then you're back to
I mean, if you look at movies and television, which I think are the most mature form of getting an army together to build something creatively, that's exactly how they do it. And there's more protections, though, and there's more sharing of those folks. You know, like it's a
true, which is really cool.
Which is cool in the movie and TV business, and in the video game business, I think that it needs to mature a little bit more along that way. I mean, you still see non-competes and things like that that just make it all really messy for people.
I think the movie model is perfect, because if you are if you're a hired gun, if you're a freelancer, and whether you be the director or a lighting guy, whatever your role is, if everyone's a hired gun, what I like about that is it keeps everyone honest, and you're hired on your merit. You're hired on how good are you. Yes, I want that same sound guy, that same, lighting woman, whatever. I want those people because they're amazing, rather than, that person didn't do so good last time, so I'm not going to be hiring him again. But you don't have to worry about firing them, because the project's over, you go on to a new project, and you start to create this little team around you, like Peter Jackson's done, I'm sure, like Spielberg does, like Ridley Scott does. They have their people that they trust and rely on, and they're hired and rehired as you go. And I love that model. I think it keeps everyone honest.
But those people are also shared on other projects, which is incredibly important.
So once
for
yours
them,
is
right?
Once yours is done, they can go off and do something else. So it's a matter of, I want him. When is he free? Or when is she available? When is she in that? You're like, it keeps everything healthy.
I have a question for you about the way that you look at the world, Jools, because when you look at a game like Mutant Mudds, it's like pixel precision, dude. And I'm wondering if when you look, like you're looking at me, and I'm pixelated because of Skype, but do you just like see the pixels in the world and go, okay, well, I can make art around all of this? Like it's so precise.
Right.
Is it just through years and years of practice, or can you break down a scene and go, well, I know exactly how to shade and put all the right pixels in place to make it work?
Yeah, it is. It is practice, like anything, right? Like anything, whether it be kicking a ball or drawing something, it's always practice. Unless you're just lucky and you're like, hey, I can do that. Sweet, good for you. keep on practicing though. It is. It is a lot of practice. I mean, my early pixel stuff, my early just drawings and notepads at school were fairly terrible, but at the time I didn't care. I was like, yeah, this is fun. I'm enjoying this. But it is, and my pixel art is definitely, for me, I know that I've got, whether the end result is improved or not, I hope it is, but for me, I know my approach and my confidence in my ability to do stuff has definitely evolved over the time. And exactly, and I can look at something and go, okay, this is how I'm going to make that. Yeah, cool. And I try to look at it from, rather than, you do zoom in and do the pixels real close up, but you really can't look at it from that because it's too close and no one sees it from that, so it's irrelevant. You really want to kind of see it as a whole from standing back a little bit, and whether that's taking into consideration it as a whole, just at a glance, what does it look like as a snapshot? Is it kind of flat? Is it missing some lighting? And lighting can be a key component of making something look good. If the lighting is wrong, which is, I guess, true for TV and for movies as well, and anything else, but if the lighting is wrong, it just looks wrong. And therefore it looks amateur, therefore it looks bad. But if the lighting has been considered, then it can help. But obviously with Max, there is no lighting, so that wasn't really where is he? Well, they got Chicken Wiggle there, but I've got Max right here. But so for Max, it's more about proportions and scale and kind of getting the hair to the glasses to the pants to the gun ratio to that place where it looked, good and chunky, rather than it looks weird and thin and strange. So anyway, yes, I guess the short answer would be I guess
is that the game that you can point at? Because for me, that's the game that I can see your prowess, clearly. Like everything is cool in Xeodrifter, and I like the Q*bert sort of homage coming off of Totes the Goats. I like all of that. But when I look at Mutant Mudds, I just go, oh man, this is a very clever person that knew how to jump into and out of the frame and scale it up and put the right amount of space between. Like, it's a little insidious how difficult that game goes, but
super challenges especially. Oh my gosh!
But
super challenges.
Is that what you see? Is that the game that you look at that you go, okay, that's where I really nailed it? I
have a really soft spot in my heart for that. So it's hard to be completely objective about it because it was truly a passion project. That we didn't expect anything. Like, we were making games for other people at the time. I think maybe Planet Crashes, I'm not sure, but maybe Face Racers, actually. I think Face Racers for the 3DS. Yes, we had our dev kits and we were doing that, and that was great. And then in the evenings, we'd work on Mudds. And it was just one of those things, even though it was really a tremendous amount of work over a fairly long amount of time, it was one of those things that always felt like, I don't know, it sounds super cheesy, but you really felt like it almost being channeled to make it. It's like, this is just a pure pleasure. This doesn't feel like work. This is just good stuff. This is all slotting together the way it should. Yeah. It was a really, really nice project.
Dude, I'm doing that right now with EP Live. For me, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like you hit a groove, and it's like, this is what you're supposed to be doing, you know?
And we had no expectations, so there was no pressure. We're like, let's just have fun. Let's just do something cool. Anyway, so it worked out pretty special. I'm really, really happy with it. Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. Yeah. Tell me about the Switch and your thoughts on this machine that Nintendo has created for us.
I love it. So my history with handhelds, you know, the DS Lite was my most favorite platform ever to date at that time. And then the 3DS came along, and even the initial 3DS hardware was pretty decent. But then especially when the new 3DS, it's not in this room, but the new 3DS, the smaller one came along. Oh, love that. You got the faceplates. I had like a suede kind of faceplate on it and stuff, and it's white and
that's cool.
Good stuff. So that was my favorite console. And then suddenly the Switch came along, and man, that 3DS looks so old and dated now.
The front end on the 3DS is especially excruciating,
so
isn't it? It's so slow.
Oh my gosh.
I know the Switch is so streamlined and slick and
it's so slick. I know, exactly. It's a beautiful thing. And I even like, you know, the way the Joy-Cons kind of come off and do that. It just feels super comfy in the grip and that. It just, everything about it. The screen's nice. Amazing games on there. I do think they need to improve the eShop. Not only for me as a developer, but I think for the the buyers, the players as well. It's not a great layout so far, but the games and the device is. I'm looking at it right there. That's what I'm looking right there. That's my Switch. It's pretty sweet, man. I like it a lot.
Did you call that, or were you a little bit? Let's wait and see. I mean, when Nintendo kind of released the first videos, did you go, is?
I was convinced as soon as I saw that 3-minute video. Yeah. Which is one of the best, probably Nintendo ads they've ever made. I was like, that is pitch perfect. Like the people that are in the video, not only are they just pretty people, but they're of the age that everyone wants to be. If you're younger than them, you want to be them. If you're older than them, you want to be them. Everyone wants to be them. You know what I mean? Like, that was so clever. You know, that's just like the perfect age, doing the perfect things in a very cool way.
Meanwhile, they were all starving actors that could barely afford to buy a Switch. But they...
No, totally. But no, I loved it. As soon as I saw that, I was definitely like hooked. I was like, that's good stuff. And then Zelda, you're like, oh my gosh, what a milestone to not only do that platform, which is, let's face it, what the Wii U should have been, right? The Switch is what the Wii U should have been. But when they pull off the Switch the way they did in such a elegant way, and then freaking Zelda comes out, you know, you almost forget it was a Wii U game. I mean, what a milestone to have Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and the Switch at the same time. Wow. Yeah. That's pretty special.
It's so solid that it feels. Clearly, it's a huge success, but it feels like it's like this aha. Like, of course, this is what people want. Yeah. Do you feel like the rest of the business is going to be offering similar products? Do they have a choice, but to go down that road, or has Nintendo carved out a unique position for themselves?
Yeah, I think they've done a unique thing here. I'd be surprised if Sony tried to copy them, and I don't think Microsoft will either. I'd be very surprised if they try to copy it, because you can't pull it off.
You know, they've copied Nintendo many times in the past.
Yeah. No, for sure. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think they'll try and innovate in different ways. I think. I don't think so. I can't see Sony and Microsoft trying to do their own Switch, because I think it'd be a sad, pathetic, pale version of what this is. Like Nintendo has nailed it so hard, done it so right. There's not much room for improvement that Nintendo probably won't even just do themselves eventually. Right. So I think Microsoft will just be like, let's just 4K blah whatever, make it this beast of a machine, and Sony will probably do something.
There are rumors
different, maybe
that Nintendo is doing some changes and some improvements to the current existing Switch. Got any info on that?
I mean, no, I don't,
Yeah.
sadly. And even if I did, I couldn't tell you,
Yes.
but I don't. But a mini Switch would be pretty
Yeah.
neat. I mean, I don't know how that would work because that's tricky because the Joy-Cons are already kind of tiny enough. But the portability of it is its only kind of one of the only kind of tricky things about it, because you have to put it in a case really, or not worry about scratching the screen. And that was what was nice about the 3DS, is the clamshell design. So, and that was what I was always worried about with my Vita.
Yeah.
It's just that beautiful screen. I don't want to get scratched and stuff. So it's kind of
25 years ago, you were making games with pixels. You're still making games with pixels.
Yeah.
Would you predict that?
No.
And why do they endure? Why are they still cool? And like, I just, because I have my own thoughts on that, but why?
Right? Yeah. Well, what's weird is, like, I lived through the phase of the N64 PS1 era where pixels were not cool.
Yes, we were not to speak of pixels.
They were done with, and I was like, oh. So I was like, that area is dead, it's gone. And then when they started coming back, I was like, oh, sweet, because that's what I love. And I mean, I love everything. I love 3D as well, but I have a soft spot for pixel stuff. So that was nice when it came back. And I guess they became nostalgic, right? Whereas, so I think there's part of that. But I think it's become hopefully an art style. I like to think that, rather than, oh, that's just cheap and easy, or whatever some naysayers may say. For me, I look at it as a style, like something like Flint Hook, for example, or Owlboy, for example. Two exceptional games that everyone should buy on whatever platform you can get them on, but they're both on the Switch. Which I have them on, and they're awesome. And I can imagine those with more, non-pixel art styles, whatever you want to call it, more hand-painted. That'd be great. But I like them more because they're pixel art, and I can't really explain why. I just like pixel art, I guess. I like to see the pixels because, when you look at, I got a mug here, like, Chicken Wiggle, if you can see that in the camera. But, well, let's look at Wiggle's eyes, for example. Can you see his eyes there? It's freaking 4 pixels, Like, you got 1 pixel for his pupil, and then 3 other pixels for the rest of his white, and that has a certain charm to it, which you couldn't get any other way, and I like that. I like that it has that.
It really hit me when I played the NES Classic Edition games, and how beautiful they were. Like, because I had. That was right around the time when I was focused on school more than I was focused on games. So I got into the NES a little bit later, so I hadn't played all of those games. And when I played them on the NES Classic, and they're not breathtaking, they're not SNES, but the pixel art was so clever and so ingenious, and
because 1 pixel is the difference between awesome and wow, what is that? Yeah, it is. It's tough. Yeah, they were masters, man. That's what's kind of awesome and sad at the same time, as you look at, like, especially the Capcom stuff on the Super Nintendo and the 16-bit era. Oh my gosh, I mean, almost like some of the pinnacle games they did at their time, and things like Demon's Crest, which artistically, and like Mickey Mouse Magical Quest on the Super Nintendo, just beautiful,
or the
beautiful
Castle
pixel
of
art.
Illusion on the Sega Genesis.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
Phenomenal work.
Amazing stuff. And I mean, and they were all under the same memory constraints that the Bubsy team were under, or some other game, some lesser game. They had the same constraints. Everyone had the exact same constraints as far as how much memory do you have, what can you get this thing to do, regardless of cartridge size. You can only display so much stuff on screen at once. So Capcom and Konami at the time, just masters of their craft, and the stuff they did was truly inspiring, to me and everyone I was working with. Was like, how do we do that? It was just truly amazing.
Have you ever heard from a developer that you admire, that you may be a fan of, that has found one of your games and said something super nice to you? Has that moment happened for you? Like, I don't think so. I'm envisioning Miyamoto playing Mutant Mudds, going, this is very good.
This is very good. I don't. No, I don't think so.
Well, it will happen.
I have met Mr. Miyamoto, which was very nice, but he didn't know who I was. I was just some annoying English guy, I'm sure. And I remember, like, I completely blew my opportunities as well. Like, this was like way back, an old E3 when the N64 was the thing. And I remember I may have had a few beers, maybe. And I was like telling him such an idiot, such a young idiot at the time. I was telling him the problem I had with the N64 version of Mario Kart versus the SNES version. Like, because you could do the skids and the stuff on the
Thank
SNES.
you.
And
The
couldn't do that
SNES
on
version
64.
is better
So
than
that's
the
what I was talking.
N64 version. I'm way with you, buddy. Yeah.
Totally. And the courses are so long and boring on the N64. It's such a dull game.
And
And
it
that's what I was
handles
telling Miyamoto.
improperly.
That's what I used my time.
Well, I got you beat.
to do.
I met Spielberg at E3, and I said I'm a big
awesome.
fan of your work. Is what I said.
Cool.
I
Me too.
also
Oh my
like
gosh.
oxygen, and food keeps me alive.
Yes. He's like, yes, thank you, Captain Obvious.
It's like jettison an awesome opportunity to meet one of my heroes.
Oh, me too, man. Spielberg to me is incredible. Him and Ridley Scott, incredible. But yeah, Spielberg especially.
Well, you've got a. I wanted to we've got a little more show to get moving on to, but you and I can clearly keep doing this, and we're going to do it again.
Yes.
Okay, I'll reach out to you to be on the show again soon.
Man.
But you've got a Kickstarter that is running right now. We talked about it on EP Live a little bit about it. Have you done a Kickstarter before? Is this one of your first times doing this, or have you done it before?
We did do one at Renegade Kid for Colt County, a survival horror game, and that wasn't successful, unfortunately. So this is, and I'd kind of sworn that I was never going to do Kickstarter again because that was rough, man.
Dude, everybody I talked to that has done one of these things has said the exact same thing. Even if they've succeeded, it's like a whole new career, right? To be able to pull this off.
Yeah. I remember the first day we launched the Colt County one, I was, because you have to click the button to make it go live. You can't schedule it. You have to actually physically click the button to make it go live. I was so anxious that morning. I was jumping out of my skin. I had to walk around the block. I was so, it was a horrible feeling. It was so rough.
And so you went through it again.
I went through it again. But this time, exactly. But like we talked about before, like with bad bosses and so on, I tried to learn from the mistakes, from what failed. And I tried to, and you know what I do? I feel so much better this time. Even though we still haven't hit the goal yet, I touch wood, I'm hopeful that we will. It's looking promising. We're halfway through the time, and 74%. I actually had that window up earlier. Where is it? 74%. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
So that's pretty good. Thanks, man. But anyway, so we put a lot of effort into getting the page to look good, to make the video, and so I feel good that it's like, all right, we've done a pretty good job. Hopefully now the ball is in other people's court, and I've done everything we can possibly do, humanly do, to make it appealing and attractive and communicate what it is. And if people don't want it,
what's the goal?
Do, great.
Like, what do you want to do with this? What's the game? What are you trying to do?
So the basic premise is, we released Chicken Wiggle on the 3DS last year in August, and I was convinced it was going to do great because it was originally going to be a 3-month game that we were going to spend time on making it. Ended up into being a 16-month game. So it's a much bigger, more ambitious game because we just let it kind of go crazy because we wanted it to be special and amazing. And I think it did turn out that way. I'm really, really proud of it. And we thought, great, 3DS, huge audience, let's release it onto that. But I don't think anyone could have predicted the effect the Switch had on the 3DS, as far as the eShop, at least, anyway. I'm sure Nintendo's first-party 3DS games are selling fine. But for us, it was like, 3DS was dropped like a bad cold. It was like,
I'll tell you that 3DS eShop is especially dated. Like it because a lot of what's new just feels like, well, that was new 2 years ago. Why is that still in the what's new thing? You know?
Yeah. So everyone was saying, "Hey, I wish this was on Switch. I wish this was on Switch." And we're like, "Oh, well, that's great. Thanks." It's not. So anyway, so then we're like, "All right, can we bring this to Switch? What can we do?" And we're like, well, and it's hard, right? Because, you release the game, it doesn't sell particularly well. So you're like, is it because of the game? Is it because of the market? Is it because of something else? It's called Chicken Wiggle. It's a little silly. Not that silly games haven't sold very well, but, you start to second guess yourself and think, well, why didn't it sell well? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try and have confidence and faith in ourselves that we did a great job. We did a great game. And I accept that not every game is for every person, and that's okay. Yeah. So, I think if you try and chase that, then good luck. It's not going to happen. So, I think it's good for the people who like this type of game. And so we're like, all right, what can we do to bring it over to the Switch? I think we really need to make it look special. We can't just do another pixel game. We've already done Mutant Mudds, which is fantastic. I love the trilogy that we released on the Switch. We did Xeodrifter. That's fantastic on the Switch. Great. That's a lot of pixels. What can we do with Chicken Wiggle? And I have a really good friend of mine, Michael Veroni. He's a very talented artist. And I was like, hey, I sent him a screenshot of Chicken Wiggle, the pixel game. And I was like, hey, can you paint this in 720p and make it look awesome? And he's like, sure. So he did that, sent it back. I'm like, oh my gosh, it looks so good, dude. I was like, so that kind of convinced me. He's like, all right, yeah, I was like, hey, you're going to be available? He's like, yeah, sure. So that's what, and a game like, and I have it over there, the Wonder Boy game for the Switch and other platforms.
Yeah.
You can switch between the NES and the new updated artwork, and that really blew me away when I played that game, because you're playing the beautiful artwork, you're like, surely they changed something, because this is feeling way too new and awesome. But you switch to the NES, you're like, wow, this is running on the exact same bones as the NES game. This is the NES game with pretty artwork.
That's great.
Wow. Anyway, so that's what inspired us. So then with Chicken Wing, we're like, let's just do that. Let's just make it look amazing. That will fit the Switch and give people a reason to do it, but we'll need money to do that. So let's do a Kickstarter, with a reasonable goal. $30,000, a reasonable goal, I think, for development, considering 50% of it goes to taxes and other things. Anyway, so that's kind of what birthed it.
You have this game, it's
Switch.
Made. And it's not just a platformer. You can also, there's a full-on editor in there, and you can build your own levels and share them, which is still, it's like Super Mario Maker before they announce it for this machine, which it's perfect for. So you've got a window to get this thing out there for people. How quick?
Yeah, and it's nice and different, because you can create your own game rules, whether it be rescue your friend at the end of the level, or whether it be collect all the things or kill all the enemies or whatever. There's lots of different game rules that you can create yourself, and lots of different art themes you can choose from. So it's got quite flexible.
That's awesome. And how long will it take to do this? I'm convinced you're going to get all the money you need. How long will it take to actually do it and ship it?
To be safe, we're putting the date down as December this year as the release date. I between you and me, I think it's going to come out before then, but we're putting that just to be safe.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, listen, Jools Watsham is an incredible guy, as you have just discovered by watching us talk here. I loved having you on, my friend, and I definitely...
Yeah, man, it's awesome to see you again, man.
I will reach out again, okay? Maybe post E3 when we've got a bunch of the Nintendo news and announcements and the other stuff. I'd love to get your perspective on all that. Cool. And we'll also hear how Chicken Wiggle is coming along and some of the other stuff you're cooking.
Perfect.
But keep up the great work, and keep that enthusiasm and that love. It inspires everybody around you, brother. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
All right.